Okay, so we should probably begin. This talk is about Chrome DevTools. So in our study groups at work, we hear a lot about libraries and frameworks, and that's natural. But I would like to hear some more talks about tooling and workflow. And the tools people use and the way they use them often vary a lot. Experienced developers often take this stuff for granted, while new developers don't know what they're missing. And I think Chrome DevTools is a pretty good example of this. So, and as web developers, the development tools built into the browsers today are absolutely vital to our workflow. Chrome DevTools is packed with cool stuff. It is more modern than Firebug in Firefox, and it has more features than Safari's DevTools. So I'm just going to show off some of those features today. So this is a practical talk. So the first thing to do is pop out Chrome DevTools, and you can follow along on your laptops if you want to do that. So the first thing you need to know is that DevTools is such a huge piece of Chrome that it is practically a separate program running inside Chrome. So this means that when you open settings in DevTools, that's not Chrome's settings, that's DevTools' own settings. So these are the Chrome DevTools. The first thing that hits you is that there's a lot of stuff on the screen here. I mean, from a UX perspective, this is, what is even going on here. There's a lot. So most of you have probably used Chrome DevTools enough to be able to navigate this mess, but you may still not have a mental model for how these tools are laid out. So I want to simplify this for you. So first we'll start with the tabs and panels here at the bottom. This is simply the drawer. So the tabs and panels at the bottom, I mean these tabs right here, that's a drawer. Those are temporary tabs. You toggle the drawer with escape. So next up, we have this stuff up here at the top. There's a lot going on there. There are several panels on this Elements tab. You can see the tabs up there at the top. And there's some stuff going on in each corner as well. So the mental model for this is simply that this is the main section. And the main section contains the primary tabs, or the primary tools, if you will. Additionally, this is also where extensions like React DevTools and Redux DevTools will add their own tabs. Now, we only have a few elements left here. So first, in the upper left corner, we have the device mode. The device mode lets you see what your website will look like on a phone or a tablet. There's also an additional button up there which lets you select an element from the page and expose it in the DOM. But my experience is that most people just use right-click and inspect anyway. So now there's just one corner left of our mental model, and that is the settings, which of course are the settings for DevTools itself, not for the entire browser. So we will start out by diving into the settings, the DevTools settings pages, in order. So I'm just going to pop out here. We'll start with preferences. So here I have a random tab. Sorry. Here I have a random tab. There we go. And I just gotta get open my notes here. 2 seconds. There we go. Okay. So the first thing to notice, we gotta go to websites. We'll go to Knowit. And here, okay, that's a nice website. There we go. And now we open DevTools. And we get some nice, messages here. It's like, an musician does not support this browser. Who made this site? Anyway. So we'll start out by going to the settings up here and going to Chrome DevTools settings. So the first thing to notice here is the preferences pane. Here you can do stuff like choose between light and dark mode, So you can actually have dark DevTools, which I think is pretty cool, but we'll drop that for now because that'll look confusing to several of you. Also, I strongly recommend this setting right here. Enable Control 1 to 9 to switch shortcut panels. That makes it so that you can use, on a Mac, use Command 1, 2, 3 to jump between these panels. Just like you can in regular Chrome. Like if you have several tabs open, you can just use Command 1, 2, and 3. Next up, if you ever develop pop-ups, God forbid, you should definitely enable auto-open DevTools for pop-ups, because you need to see what happens when the page spawns. So if you have that checked off, then you can do, window.open and let's say https encrypted.google.com. And a pop-up, a new page will spawn with Google, and the DevTools automatically opens for that page. So you get to see what happens from the very beginning instead of coming in too late. Let's see. Next pane. The next pane is Workspaces. In Workspaces, you can add your workspace folders to make them searchable throughout DevTools, and to make it so that changes you make in the sources panel are actually persistent. So this makes Chrome DevTools more into an editor, which is really nice. Some limitations is that from the Elements panel, from the DOM inspector, if you make changes here, you can only make changes to styles here at the right side, and those will be saved into your style sheets. I don't know how well this works with CSS and JS. While from the sources panel, if you change files you've added to your workspace here, they will be saved to disk automatically. Next up, we will look at blackboxing. We'll just skip past experiments, by the way. Experiments is just all the fun stuff that will come in the next version of Chrome DevTools, which typically ships with the next version of Chrome. So blackboxing is a way to ignore things that are going on in the script. So say you have a utility library from work that you use a lot, and this utility library is awful. It prints out tons of error messages, and your debugger will stop all around in that script. Well, then you can just blackbox it. So I can go ahead and blackbox content scripts. That's scripts from extensions. And I can edit this little rule here that blackboxes anything with the pattern index.js. And this is regex, so I need the /dot there. And I have a star at the end there, or a dot star, which is anything past index.js, just to match any get params and stuff like that. So we'll see how this looks at Knowit NO. Okay, so we are at Knowit NO, so I can go to the sources panel, and I can go into global assets, and no, sorry, where do I have it? Okay, static, I guess, output.js, index.js, there we go. Here's the JavaScript bundle for our website in Knowit Norway. And as you can clearly see, this script is blackboxed in debugger. That means that the debugger will skip any breakpoints in there. It will skip errors and stuff like that. It won't care if things go wrong in there. Next up, I got to turn that off first. There we go. Next up is the devices mode, devices panel. In here, you can actually add custom devices. So say you know something about the iPhone 11, the iPhone XI, then you can just add it in here. And you know that it's got a, say, a 1400 by 3000 screen, 2 as a device pixel ratio, and the user agent will be Mozilla 5.0, iPhone awesomeness, and yeah, whatever. That's now the user agent string, and you can save this. And then you can go to Knowit, open DevTools. I'm just going to put that over here for a second. There we go. And then when you open device mode here, that's the button up there, you can actually choose your new iPhone 11 as a target to see what your page will look like. So, what more? Okay, so there's also a throttling panel here where you can add throttling profiles. And that's a way to make sure that to test what your page will look like with various connection types. So I have a profile here called Municipality of Oslo Android with a 4 megabyte download, 1 megabit upload, and 400 milliseconds of ping, which is terrible. But this is really handy because when I develop pages for the Municipality of Oslo, I will see what our page will look like with this throttling. So I can just go to the Network tab over here, and all the way over in this corner, where it says Online, you can change to Oslo Kommune Android, and then reload the page and see how fast or slow that'll go. And let's actually disable that again. There we go. Just gotta check that I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, so the last pane in here in settings is shortcuts. And I strongly recommend learning some shortcuts in Chrome DevTools. It's super handy. The most important one is simply down here in the corner. It's called Go to Source. Command P on the Mac. Control P, I guess, on Windows, on Linux. So from anywhere in Chrome DevTools, I can hit Command P, and I will get up this panel that kind of looks like, it's a search panel that kind of looks like Spotlight or Alfred. And in here, I can open all kinds of files. I have access to all files that is currently in scope because I'm on this website. Additionally, I can also see files from private projects that are added through Workspaces. So I can open like any tab and jump right back into my project and start coding on that in Chrome DevTools. If I don't have another editor available. You can type question mark to see what kind of stuff this thing can do. The most important one is run command down there. With run command, you get full access to everything in Chrome DevTools at a keystrokes notice. So you can just go, type a little crocodile arrow thingy, and then, for example, say dark theme. Boom, it's dark. And the shortcut for jumping straight into this panel and autofill a small crocodile character is Command Shift P or Control Shift P. So we'll go back to light theme. We can also do stuff like show sources and go to the sources panel. We can go show settings, goes to the settings panel, etc. It can do anything. So literally everything you're doing now with your mouse around in Chrome DevTools can be done through this tiny little search box. It's great. We can also do stuff like capture screenshots. So here we have Knowit. Now let's try to capture a screenshot of that page. Screenshot, capture, screenshot, and boom, we got a screenshot downloaded to our computer. Okay, yeah, it works nicely. We can also capture a full page screenshot there. So a full-size screenshot will capture the entire scroll view, and that's why it takes a little longer to generate. So here we get, the entire page laid out in a huge file here. And you can also already see, Knowit Developer Summit stuff in here, which feels kind of meta right now. By the way, just ask any questions you have anyway. There's actually a new feature in Chrome 63. I'm going to go ahead and say that, which is capture screenshot of a node. So if I, for example, select the header here, I can go ahead and screenshot that particular node to just get a screenshot of the header, which is nice. Now we will jump into the drawer. That's our next part of the presentation. The drawer is all the panels down here. The fun thing about these panels is that they're temporary. The console tab is the only one that's persistent. The other ones can be, X'd away. There we go. Now they're all gone. So the drawer now only contains the console. Those other panels are available through this little triple dot here at the left side. And we will start out with the animation tab. So now Chrome DevTools is listening for animations. So we will go to google.com and we will say, okay, you can see that already it's captured some animations. And if you look very closely at the search field, you can see the shadow blinking there underneath the search field. Do you see it? Yeah. And we're going to say, do a barrel roll. And Google does a barrel roll. There we go. Nice. OK. So now we've captured this animation. So we can play it back as many times as we like. Not only that, but we can mess with it. We can make it a lot shorter, like wee. And this is a lot of fun. And we can do all kinds of stuff with this animation. We can make it go start after a certain while, so that when we click here, there's a delay before it starts. And this is a really nice way to tweak your animations to figure out exactly how they should feel. So, by the way, who knows the difference between setting the background color in HTML on the HTML tag versus the body? Is there a difference? Nobody knows. OK, let's try it. Well, let's go to the HTML tag and set a background color of hot pink. Frequently used color in debugging. And we'll do a barrel roll again. There we go. As you can clearly see, the entire body does a barrel roll, and the HTML tag is actually a visible parent which is rendered. So that's why we're seeing hot pink on the screen here, because the HTML tag is a visible tag. So the head tag in HTML is the only thing that is, not rendered at all. So most people think that it's just, you jump into the HTML and it's not rendered, and you go, yeah, you get the point. Next up, we'll go to coverage. So we will go back to our company website, Knowit.no, and we will go to coverage down here, another temporary tab, and we will record and reload. So now we've reloaded the page, and we can clearly see here that it says main CSS, unused bytes, 93%. 93% of the style sheet on our company page is unused. And when we click it, it opens in the source panel up here. And you can clearly see that these rules aren't used, and those rules aren't used, and that's not used. And why did this stuff load to my computer? It's not used. None of it is used. It's this is actually a pretty good argument for. You can see that the red here signifies that stuff is not used. So almost none of this is used. This is actually a pretty good argument for CSS in JS, because then only the CSS that you need is bundled with the components that you render. So yeah. Next up, we will look at the history. No, sorry. That's not correct. Next up, we will look at rendering. There we go. The rendering panel can do a few neat things. It can highlight paint flashing, for example. So if I do this and I poke around here, you can see that things are flashing. What's going on here is that every single reflow in the DOM is highlighted through paint flashing. And this helps you find out how exactly the page reflows every time you hover over something or do something. This can help you find performance bottlenecks. For example, if a single component re-renders very frequently, then that's just waste of CPU cycles. You also have an FPS meter in there, so you can see whether or not you get 60 FPS scrolling, which is, it's 2018, it's time to have that. And you can emulate print, for example. So if I go ahead and emulate print down here, then I can see without printing what the page will actually look like on print. Any questions so far? Nothing? Is it understandable? Am I going too fast? Okay, good. Good. Next up, we will look at request blocking. So request blocking is exactly what it sounds like. It's a way to stop requests to certain addresses. So I enable request blocking down here. So I'm going to block Knowit.no/global assets, which will block JavaScript and pretty much everything. And I will block googleapis.com so the font won't load properly. And let's see what happens when I reload. Well, the background image is gone, so that's definitely in the global assets folder. And you can see here on the source panel where stuff is. So if I open static here, shouldn't there be a global assets folder in there? An image, I guess? Okay, I don't remember where it is exactly, but that doesn't matter. The point is, you can block, you can look at the requests and see which URLs they're going to, and then you can block specific requests to figure out what'll happen if certain APIs go down. So, I mean, Google won't go down, but say you rely on Google a lot. You use analytics, you get some fonts, you maybe get some CSS, then one day, all that stuff is unavailable. And this shouldn't happen, of course, with Google, but it can happen with pretty much all other vendors. And then, your system breaks because someone else's system breaks, and that's not good. So, next up, we will look at a fun one called sensors. And sensors is just a way of overriding geolocation and orientation and stuff like that. So if I go to geolocation and I say Moscow, and then we go to maps.google.com, and it kind of assumes I'm in Norway, but let's see what happens when I click the position button. Oh, it found us. Still, though. Why, though? Maybe I have to reload. This should override. You should disable voiceover on your computer. Okay, for some reason this isn't working right now. Maybe if I click update here. Oh, that is not working either. It's thinking. It's pretty clear about where we are right now. It's probably because I'm connected to this Wi-Fi, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, this should place us in Moscow. It did the last time I held this presentation, so clearly they messed something up. Next up, we will look at the. Oh, I'm actually going to show you one more that's not in my notes. The What's New slide, What's New tab. So down here, in the temporary tabs, there's a What's New tab. And this will show you everything that's new in the last update. And the Chrome DevTools team is really good at explaining exactly what's new. So this is awesome. So they even provide videos where they will show you like short tutorials of how to use the new tools. It's really cool. So like you can go in here and read their blog posts and watch their videos and stuff like that. So I try to frequently do this. So whenever you open DevTools and the What's New pane pops up, try to look at it. Okay, we'll go back to Knowit now. So next up, we will look at the device toolbar. I think I have some request blocking going on here. I'm just going to disable that and reload. So the device toolbar, again, is the button up here. So we enable this. And then we get our iPhone 11, which we defined previously. Now you can use the size bar, which is this bar right here, to quickly select, small mobile, medium mobile, large mobile, or tablets and stuff like that. And depending on the size of your screen, you can go as far as 4K and 5K, and I don't know what's past that because I haven't tried it yet. Also, you can do something really cool, which is, let's say we have an iPhone 8. We can show device frame. Now it's already shown here because I already have it enabled, but if it's not enabled, you can click this triple dot here and go ahead and show device frame. And this is really cool because if you combine this with screenshots, take a screenshot. Let's see. Capture screenshot. Then you get a very nice transparent PNG screenshot of your page, which you can just drop into any customer presentation or what have you. And it even hides stuff like power and Wi-Fi and stuff like that because it's not important during a presentation. And it's a mock anyway, so. What more? Oh, by the way, when you scroll here, you can also hold Shift to zoom instead of scrolling. So that's a neat feature. You can also play around with the device pixel ratio. If I set a responsive here, for example, and I choose a device pixel ratio which is higher or lower, I can see what our page will look like on an older or newer computer. Now the device pixel ratio is a parameter that was introduced when Retina displays came around. So instead of so what they did was just take every pixel value and time it with the device pixel ratio. So 400 pixels times device pixel ratio is what you should show on this screen. So and of course, if you select a phone here, let's say iPhone 6, then on the network tab, throttling becomes even more important because older phones will have older chips and slower broadbands. Next up, we will start to dive into the main section here. But unfortunately, every single tab up here, all of these tabs, are worthy of their own presentation because there is so much stuff going on here, especially in audits. The so-called lighthouse feature is huge, and you can hold days worth of presentations about this stuff. So we're gonna focus. We're gonna focus on the console tab because I intend to assist your daily debugging by showing you some things about the console tab you didn't know. Two seconds. First off, we will look at the console itself. So can you read this nicely? Yeah? All good? People in the back? Good. So one nice thing to know about the console is that it works a lot like an editor. So it has multiple cursors, for example. So if I write like window, and window, and window, and maybe some more windows, like down there, then I can hit Command D or Control D to select more and get multiple cursors. So now I can write with 6 cursors at once, which is really cool. and for example, write console log, taco, for example, and then you get. You need, of course, to have your semicolons in order, and then you get 6 tacos. And so that's multiple cursors. Next up is query objects, and I'm going to just steal some stuff from my presentation here. Can you not be that big? There we go. Guess we need some code. I'm going to publish these slides later, by the way, and it contains all the code I'm showing. So, yeah. So there's something called query objects, and query objects is a way of finding every instance of an object, every instance of a single constructor. So say we make a person class like this. We go over here and paste that in, and now we've created a person class. And we make 2 people, one called Elliot, new person, Elliot, and one called Angela. There we go. And now we can do query objects on person to find all objects that are currently in scope that I've used to construct a person. And we get an array of 2 persons. And then we can right-click and say store as global variable, and you get a temp1 variable. And then you can do temp1.for each person, person.say hi. And they will both say hi. And this is a really nice way of finding objects. Now, this may not be that useful with regular JavaScript objects, but think about the possibilities with promises or HTML elements. So I can do query objects and look for promise. And right now, there are no active promises on this page, but if there were, they would show up here. I would see all current live promises. Pretty cool. I can also do this with say HTML elements. To find an array of every single HTML element on the page. So this is pretty cool. Thanks. How am I doing on time? Okay, good. There's also a lot of shortcuts in here. The coolest one is, I think, is a $_ Please note that none of this works together with jQuery because this is stuff that's built into Chrome DevTools. $_ returns the last value. So I wrote 2 + 2 right now and got 4, and I do $_ and I get 4 again. 4 again. Now, $0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the last 5 selected DOM nodes at any given time. So if I go to the Elements panel and I try to find this logo here, inspect that. Now, this image is now selected, and I can go ahead and click the different parents of that image. And now I can go to the console, and they will each be in this stack. So number 4 will be the image. Number 3 will be its parent. Number 2 will be its grandparent, etc., etc. And $0 is always the very last selected element in the Elements panel. There's also a shortcut for document query selector that is just $, and provide a string, and you get whatever, just like in jQuery. And this is inspired by jQuery, of course. This works. This did not work as expected here because jQuery is already loaded on this page. Because at Knowit we have jQuery, and a simple way to test this is just do $, and fn and jQuery, and you get the version running of the current jQuery. So we got to find a page without jQuery. Let's say, I don't know, maybe a Google Calendar, perhaps. Yeah, let's try that. Is this the same? No, it isn't. There we go. Okay, so Google Calendar probably doesn't have jQuery. Let's try that. Oh, great, it doesn't. So now we can go ahead and select all images on this page, and we get this one little Knowit image in the top there. You can also do $$ to get an array of all images on this page. And there are currently 4 image elements on this page. I don't know where the rest are. They're hiding. Next up, a couple of nice things to know is that clear will clear the entire console, and copy will copy anything as JSON, which is really, really nice. So say we just copy local storage, and just, yeah, let's see what happens. And now we have our entire local storage for this page on our clipboard. So we do Command V to paste it, and we get an empty object. So we have to think about a page that has something in the local storage. We can use, for example, Browse It, which is a nice little extension made by us in Knowit ObjectNet. It's for onboarding people. It's really cool. And we can go in here and say copy local storage. And now we should get a huge array of all these checkboxes here on whether or not they are checked. No, it's an empty object because I haven't checked off any checkboxes. But if I check off some checkboxes first, then we will get those checkboxes into local storage and we can copy that object out directly. There's also a neat shortcut for object keys and object values, which is just keys and values. So we can say keys and local storage. And we can say values and local storage. And this, you know, it's small things, but it's really neat when you're debugging and using this stuff every single day. It saves you 5 seconds here and 5 seconds there, and it quickly adds up. I also want to show you a monitor function. So say we define a lol function. There we go. Now we have defined the lol function, and we can run it like this. Boom, lol. And it prints out this vaguely pink sentence right here. And if we monitor this function with a monitor, then every single time this function is called, the console will alert us about that fact. So now if we call the lol function again, we will first get function lol function called, and then we will get our fluffy pink sentence. Let's see. Next up, monitor events. Really handy stuff. So monitor events gives us the ability to monitor all kinds of events, even in collections. So let's say we want to do monitor window resize. Now, if we resize the window, every time it's called, we will get an object with the event. And we can also do stuff like well, for example, scroll. So this actually takes an array as an argument if you want to do monitor multiple types of events. So we can monitor resize and scroll on the window. And then when we scroll, I thought, no, sorry, that's probably mouse. I gotta check my notes. No, it is scroll. Well, then I don't know what's going on here. Let's, oh yeah, of course, we have to unmonitor first, but let's just reload the page. So, and re-monitor everything. Oh, the thing that is going on here is actually that the page isn't scrolling, it's just this div here in the middle that is scrolling. That's interesting. We'll find a different page. Knowit and monitor again. And now, when we scroll, as you can see, all events are printed straight out to the terminal. And you can also listen or monitor categories of event types. So if you monitor mouse, you'll get all kinds of mouse events. Monitor key, touch, control. You'll get them all printed straight out of the console. It's really handy for seeing what the hell is going on. And this is very handy if you combine it with things. So for example, if you combine these shortcuts. So let's try this. Let's monitor all mouse events on the last selected DOM element. So we'll go back to, no, we'll stay here at Knowit and we'll select the, well, this text right here. Let's select this, inspect this, Now it's selected. And now, if we go down to the console down here, can I get the console? There we go. And I say monitor events, and I use the $0 to get our last selected DOM elements, the text, and I listen to all mouse events. There we go. And now, as we move our mouse over this text, it will register all events passing through that particular element, and click events, and anything.
Can you monitor event?
I don't think so. Monitor event. So you want to double print everything?
And when you yourself call yourself.
Oh, right.
It would be an infinite loop, of course, but
Probably, I don't know. I haven't tried because I haven't felt the urge to crash DevTools lately. And now for the last part of the presentation, we'll take a closer look at something you probably use a lot more, which is console log. How many here have used console log? Okay, practically everyone, almost. Now, console log can do a lot of fun stuff. I'll just clear this thing first. There we go. The basics, of course, are console log. That works, you know this. And console info, warn, and error. But instead of printing lol, we'll print, tacos. There we go. And this, of course, prints a regular console and a warning and an error. Little fun fact here is that console info used to be printed with a small blue icon, but they removed it for some reason. I have no idea why. And there's also console assert, which only prints if something went wrong. So console assert, and we'll just go ahead and say false. It went badly. And it printed. And it also jumped over to the sources panel, by the way. So console assert will only print if an expression turns out to be false. This is really handy for debugging. For debugging. So for example, if we do console assert 0.1 plus 0.2 equals 0.3, this should go right through, right? Shouldn't print anything? No? Should not print anything. Oh, it failed. And this, of course, failed because 0.1 plus 0.2 is 0.300004. I don't. Computers, man. This is a floating point problem, by the way. Anyway. Next up, we can also print objects. So we can say console log and say my %O, which is an object, is ready for summer, and give it document.body. So my document body is ready for summer. There we go. Nice, right? And we can say, we can also print with a variable called C, so let's see, %C, and say, we got a computer here, Knowit Developer Summit. The C tells the browser tells the DevTools to expect a style. So the next argument here will be a style. And we can do font size, 88 pixels, font family, operator, blah, 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 blah. Font size italic. Yeah, that all sounds good. Boom. Knowit Developer Summit. I didn't actually expect the emoji to turn out italic, but that's whatever. Can we color the emoji, though? Let's try that. Let's do color hot pink. Oh, we couldn't. Would have been fun, though. Anyway, there's also something called grouping in console. So if you look at this little bunch of code here, you can say that we start out with a console group, Knowit, and a console group dev summit. And then we print two things in there, and we say group end and group end again. Does anyone know how this works? Has anyone used this before? Nope? Great. So let's try it. What happens is that you get a tree structure of groups. And these can actually be, collapsed and reopened. So this is really handy for, tree structures, which incidentally are, almost everything in web development are tree structures. The DOM. And you can also start these groups as collapsed. So if I say console.group collapsed, then it will start as collapsed. So that's neat. How many here have written code like var now equals date.now, and then later written like date.now minus old now or something? To check how many milliseconds a certain function used? Yeah, some people have done this. Yeah, you don't actually need to do that, because if you go to settings up here in the corner, you can show timestamps. So you get timestamps for everything in the console, so you don't have to, add code to figure out how long something took. It's always easier when you don't have to add more code. And if you really want times, there's something called time as well. So if I do console time, then it just starts a timer. And then I do console.time end. And it says, OK, that took 5.5 seconds. And I can do this with named parameters as well. So I say console time KDS, and I say console time lol. And then I can end this at whichever time I want to see how long that took. Yeah, pretty cool. And and you probably all know that you can console log objects, like document.body. But you probably didn't know that you can, and then you get the XML edition of the HTML body. But you probably didn't know that you can also log the JavaScript properties of that object. So if I do console dir instead, then I will get a JavaScript object with, all the properties it actually has. You get to peek behind the curtain, as they say. There's also a little fun feature called console console table. So if I create an object with Bobby, his legal name is Robert, drop table student, so you've all heard about him. His nickname is Little Bobby Tables. He's 8 years old, and his parents are Mrs. Exploit and Mr. Rootkit. So we'll define this object, and then we'll do console table Bobby. Or, we don't. Bobby is not defined. It is, though. Let's just assume I broke something and restart this page. There we go. OK, so what happens here is that you do console table, and you get this nice table with every key and every value in that object. And if a certain value is an array, you'll also get the array indices listed out here and the length at the end. We can do this with a little more complex table to get a larger view. There we go. So this is, how many of you know which family this is? A few of you? Yeah, good. Mr. Robot, yes, that's great. It's a fun TV show. So there's also something called console count, which will simply count the number of times a certain string is sent to console. So I send it lol, and it says 1. And I send lol again, and it says lol2. And what I'm going to do now is send it a lot of strings through something called hate mail. And we're going to pretend like we're sending hate mail to Equifax, Mossack Fonseca, and Ashley Madison, because I just assume they get a lot of hate mail. And let's see what happens. OK, so Ashley Madison gets 1. They all get 1. And as you can see, it just keeps They just keep getting hate mail. It's a terrible day in those companies. Awful, awful. And what's going on here, of course, is that it's just counting strings. And I don't know how to stop this thing, so I have to reload the page now. So there we go. Lastly, something that landed very recently in Chrome DevTools is native support for async await. So we can actually do console log, and then in there put a promise await, promise resolve, and then give it a string like hello, I am a string. There we go. And then, of course, we forget something. Oh, of course, we're not supposed to have the semicolon in there. Why didn't any of you tell me? There we go. Okay, so now, we waited to create a string, and yeah, the whole point here is just to show you that async await can be done natively in the console, which means you can test a lot of async stuff directly, which is super nice now that almost everything is supposed to be async. We can test this with a slow function. I've defined a slow function which creates a promise and sets a timeout, and calls it back with a string after 4 seconds. And then we're just going to await that function and call it. So let's see what happens when we call this function. We wait 4 seconds, and boom. It works. So, and that's actually the end of my presentation. So if you want to learn more about this stuff, there's a Stack Overflow tag, which is continuously monitored by the people who actually make Chrome DevTools. So if you have any questions, just ask there, and they will probably answer you quite quickly. They're also available on Twitter. If you use Twitter, I recommend following that account, because you get a lot of cool tips and tricks about stuff you didn't know. If you have feature requests to Chrome DevTools, use the mailing lists or make a GitHub issue. And yeah, that's that. Thanks. Questions? You get this. Anyone? Are you good at catching?
So this is not a question, but one thing that I discovered like a week or two ago is that in some IDEs like IntelliJ and Visual Studio Code, you can connect to the Chrome debugger, place breakpoints in your IDE, and Chrome will stop at them.
Yeah, it's super nice.
Yeah, it's a really...
What's happening there is that Chrome DevTools has an API which editors can connect to, so that the editor can control breakpoints, both in functions and with events and everything. It's super cool. Yeah. Anyone else? Throw it that way, or this way, whichever fits. There we go. Yeah, you can. He's way closer. Go ahead.
So this is wonderful, tools in Chrome. What happens with Internet Explorer?
I don't know, and I don't care.
But so if you use this tool and you work it perfectly in Chrome, what's the expectation then in other browsers?
In the old Internet Explorer, the DevTools were pretty out of date, but in Edge, it's actually really nice. So in Edge, they've taken a lot of inspiration from Chrome DevTools in creating a whole new set of DevTools themselves, and it's super nice. So I can only recommend taking a look at. It's probably it's all the same. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
How about Firefox? How far behind is it? How about Firefox?
So Firefox is pretty good,
okay.
Especially now in the new release with the Quantum Engine and all that stuff. And I don't know which features they don't have, but it's I assume they have almost everything. One thing though, debugging canvases is a consistently hard problem, And I think Chrome is about to release some pretty cool canvas debugging features that I'm very certain the other people don't have yet.
I was just a comment on if you set breakpoints in Chrome and Visual Studio pick it up, we had to disable that feature because it's made Visual Studio crash a lot. So that's also an option you can, I think it's under option, you can disable it under it's a tab debugging.
Good tips.
Yep.
Anyone else? It's just fun to throw things. Okay, well that's it. Thanks.